All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Qumulex Radio. I am Josh, joined by Aaron, and today's topic, we were going to talk about the fact that, I feel like starting, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, seems like all we ever heard was PTZ cameras, the pan, tilt, zoom cameras, typically pennant mount, spin around, zoom in, just for those who may not be familiar. Seems like I always heard these things were going away. And the first manufacturer I worked for uh, was a camera manufacturer, and they said that when I started there that these things are kind of going away. And I think that if I remember right, about 68% of my revenue in my territory was PTZ cameras, and I really don't ever remember that slowing down. You and I both worked at a different cloud provider in addition to this one, and I feel like we always heard that the PTZ cameras are going to go away.
Yeah.
One of our most popular feature additions in QX Control here at Qumulex was the ability to control PTZ cameras.
Yeah,
Very
right.
popular feature, very anticipated. And I feel like a lot of the quotes that come through and a lot of the work that I see out there includes PTZ cameras. So what happened? They didn't go
I,
away.
I'm in agreement with you. They're still very much in market, and plus, here at Cumulix, we kind of take the approach of no camera left behind. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of existing cameras out there, and we saw the need for that integration. So we made it happen. I would say, back, when I was working for Pelco in 2017, cameras were a very different animal, PTC specifically, sorry. Um, you know, Back in those analog days, Pelco D, Pelco P, coaxitron, you had these belt and pulley driven mechanisms where, the more you used them, the higher the potential of them breaking. So from a maintenance perspective, they were cumbersome to maintain. So you obviously needed to have that support element there. Otherwise, you were dealing with broken cameras that were stuck in a position, maybe a not undesirable position. Um, you know, I would think the uptick is just due to advancements. So, I mean, what we have today is incredible. You have direct drive motors, so you don't have as many components that have the potential to go bad inside these cameras. You have a higher megapixel capability, so 4K PTZs with 30 time optical zoom. That's insane. I mean, what that affords you now is, insane image stability at range because you have, that greater, I guess, sight picture, whatever you want to call it. That's incredible. I think that's a big step up in advancement. In addition to that, there's integrated IR that is capable of up to 200 meters in a lot of these various manufacturers. In addition to that, you have just better integration into accessories. You have radar elements that can point your cameras for you. You have devices that are multi-imager plus PTZ. And again, they feed off of each other. So as you start to digitally zoom in on your panoramic image, then that's the cue to the camera to automatically pan, the PTZ with the optical zoom to then, elaborate on that area of interest. So yeah, I think the technology is really what's driving, the demand for sure. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit on something that I hadn't thought about. I mean, back in the old days, especially with the analog versions, there were a lot more moving parts. They were probably not the most durable parts in many cases, and they were very expensive, I feel, compared to what you would see now. And they would break a lot, and there was a lot of maintenance, and there was a lot of replacement or repair that had to occur. So I guess I don't know. Maybe what happened was that was kind of the legend before a lot of these improvements took place, where they not only got better but more reliable. And then, like humans often do, we just sort of kept saying that. But I think they had a lot of benefits. So if we go back to that first manufacturer I worked for many years ago, they dealt with a lot of government municipalities. So, I mean, like, we had border patrol, and a lot of border sites, prisons, municipalities, like water treatment plants. I can think of one like up in Michigan. There's this water treatment plant, and the focal range on the zoom, I mean, it's just incredible. And it gave them, they did have people there on site, um, and they were able to, with the IR capability, and it went out, I forget how many meters, but over 100 meters of IR, to be able to light up the target viewing area, and to zoom in and see. I also wonder, I think that there's like the remote guard tour,
Mhm.
or maybe that's not the right way to put it, like the remote guard services that are becoming very popular. I would imagine having, an array of PTZ cameras, to be able to remotely monitor that site, be able to point a laser at them, not one that would hurt them, but to point out that I see you.
Yeah.
They can talk down to them, as well as hear what is being said. Allows them, the ability to, provide these services for many sites at once, and reduce the number of staff that is required. So I could see PTC being a good fit there with a lot of that new technology that you mentioned. But
Sure.
I think probably the real scientific, technical, and like business reason that PTZs, I feel, are like growing in popularity again is just that they're way super cool. I mean, who doesn't want to steer the camera around?
Right.
Do you think that's
There's
true? Do you think that's
that
what
I
it is?
do.
They're just way super cool.
I think about this analogy, right? So you have, an iPhone or any phone, for example, you have some amazing capabilities, with the imager that's on this guy. But at the end of the day, it's a fixed imager. You're digitally zooming, just like what you're doing with, your high res commercial cameras today. There's no there's no replacement for a good SLR camera, right? Why? Because you have optical zoom compounded with that digital factor. And you bring up another good point that I wasn't thinking of earlier. And that was the, addition to analytics. That was, several years ago. But edge analytics on a PTZ where you had like adaptive tracking and things like
Yeah,
that. So they're very sophisticated devices.
which is becoming
Um,
common.
right,
When I
right.
go on Amazon and I look at models that, are strange words I've never seen before, and I can't believe how cheap that R2D2 looking, mega PTZ camera is. It's like a $200 camera, but it's got all of these analytics, and it's got the auto tracking and all of these things. So, you
Yeah,
know, that would have been like in the old days, the belt that would always break on the camera would cost you
exactly.
$200. Now you can get a whole
Exactly.
camera for that. I don't know if I really, buy into the whole idea of like, purchasing these cameras on Amazon, or,
Sure.
low end cameras that are off brand. But I mean, the really good ones, aren't always that far north of 1,000, sometimes under. And
Right.
I think that affordability, is always a thing. We always want to see things get better, get cheaper. I think we've seen that, with PTZs. I think we've also seen a lot of these PTZs that, they're kind of made to resist like the ice and snow, and some of
Oh,
the
absolutely.
issues that can cause them to lock up, or, get frozen, to have trouble.
There's some cool advancements as well where, there's some models where the dome is or the actual camera unit itself is below the mounting point. So it actually has
Right.
the ability to look up the horizon, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you think it's very basic, but to go like, let's say 15 degrees, past horizon is actually amazing. Because think about like applications where you're sitting at the bottom of a hill or something of that nature, or
Sure.
you maybe want to look up at the top of your building or whatever the case may be. That's huge. And just overall advancements. And even when IP PTZs first came out, it was rough because there's a lot of latency associated with sending that traffic across the network. When the commands actually hit, there were um, there was a lot of compensation happening in the background to alleviate the stress of that latency. I remember that from my days. But nowadays it's very it's very robust. It's very snappy. Even what we're doing across the internet, there's very little latency
Right.
when issuing controls to a PTZ, which I think is amazing. Just how far we've come. So yeah, I just kind of recap to your point. I think there were a lot of pain points initially. Through advancements and overall technology enhancements, they're kind of coming back into play. Yeah, no
They
question.
seem to be hugely popular. And again, I think, if you look at like, cloud-based solutions like ours, if you imagine you're like one of these remote guard service providers, that's what you want. I mean, again, like we talked about in our last episode, this concept of, one of the things that cloud provides you is that scalability to manage all these various sites. So, you imagine a service like that, it's very important that they can use PTZs, very important that they can do that, with their cloud solution that they're utilizing. So, I think that that will drive even more innovation and perfection in the efficiency of the communication, for those cameras. And
Do
yeah,
you
I
think
mean,
there's an aspect of like digital zoom fatigue, where you go around and you can just look anywhere really, like parking garages, just look around next time you're at the mall and you'll see, either multi-imagers or you'll see, high res single imagers mounted, to cover very large spaces. You know what I mean?
so
Where traditionally
that's
there
a
would have
good
been a
point.
PTZ.
And I mean, obviously, if you go 4K, for example, and you want to cover a larger area like that, you have more. I don't know if people always understand this, but I mean, when you do that digital zoom from your interface, the more pixels you have, the more that you can actually kind of work with that image without stretching it. Kind of like if you put a logo on your, document in Word and you make it bigger than it's supposed to be, it starts looking really pixelated and terrible. Your image is going to do that on the camera. So yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, I think there's a place for using the fixed camera for that and using digital PTZ, especially if you're trying to cover a wide area. But because with the PTZ, you're pointing in on something very specific, and either through the use of the analytic that's doing it for you, or whether you're doing it manually controlling it. I mean, you're trying to zone in on something specific versus if you have like a very high resolution fixed camera. I am seeing that whole area, but then you do have to realize, where you see these cameras hanging up, how many of those are 4K right now? Probably not that many. There's a limit, to how much they can really zoom in, but there's an advantage, I would say, that I could zoom in, on the recorded footage or live, I suppose, perhaps, but then I'm going to have to kind of pull back and go back to native resolution and then zoom in again on the other spot. It's interesting. I
Yeah,
don't know how I
I
feel
think
about that.
that,
I think you kind of need both. I think that goes back to
right.
that concept where, you need the integrator or consultant, to think about what they want to see and what kind of coverage they want. And yeah, I mean, I think both have their place, but I mean,
Sure.
that's the difference that I was heading towards is, with PTZ, that's a focal zoom. So you have a lens and, when, as you zoom in with that lens, you're not distorting anything, because that is a native focal, uh, the lens itself is zooming in. And so you're really not stretching those pixels at all.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. Yeah, every application has, or every camera has its, preferred application. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll conclude with that. I don't think, I think there's best in breed technologies for, many applications. I don't think PTZs will ever go away. There will always be a need to reach out a little bit further. And I think, what manufacturers are doing today are making it really easy to, consume that technology again, like I said, with those accessory devices where you could, um, I even saw, sorry to kind of, I was concluding and now I'm going to
No,
fire it
go
back up
for it.
again. I saw this really cool demo the other day where it was actually like the cameras were talking to each other through like a back channel where,
Uh-huh.
you had a fixed camera that had an emotion event, like a
Uh-huh.
tracking event trigger, and then it called over for the PTZ to then help to track it. So this camera was responsible for actually tracking the unit, and then it was sending like telemetry to actually move the PTZ to ensure you're capturing a very detailed view of that individual or whatever the object was. And I thought that was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that innovation is, keeping it very much relevant is my concluding thought. But yes,
yeah, we have a lot of these smaller footprint ones too that almost kind of look like similar to a dome cam or like a normal dome camera, and they're very small and they don't have the same focal zoom. They're not going to go 24x, 40x, but you get like 4, 8. Maybe I've seen some that are 10. I'm not quite sure, but I just think there's a lot more ability to make them compact. Like you get a lot more technology in them than you used to. But I think the reasons that people needed PTZ in the first place, I would say, have not changed. I mean, I think if anything, we've added, more, I guess, situations where somebody may want to use that PTZ camera. And certainly I don't think any of the situations that existed before have gone away.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you heard it here first. PTZ cameras, get used to it. It's like a tattoo. It's here forever. You might be ashamed of it, but it's just never going away.
No shame. We love PTZ.
No shame at all. I love them. I think they're fun. I really do. Absolutely. Playing with cameras is a lot of fun. So one of the reasons I think I was drawn to this job, I'm like a little child, like to play with the toys. So, well, that was good. And, honestly, I think we actually solved it, because one of the things I always wonder about is why did people say they were going away? Why were we hearing even, 2-3 years ago, people say, well, why would we integrate these new cloud solutions with PTZ cameras? Why? What is the point? They're going away. They were a maintenance nightmare at one point. And they were, they're better now. We can do a lot more with them, and they've gotten smaller in some cases and they're more affordable and can do more for you. So I'm glad they're around.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, hey, good talk as always. And we will see all of you the next time.